Welcome to our Thriving Talk with Karen series. Today we are going to share with you the 3 best Thrive Life ingredients to help you save time in the kitchen so you can have more time doing other things that you love. Now, if you haven't heard much about Thrive Life foods, you're in for a treat today. Please welcome our special guest, Thrive Life consultant and blogger of Backyard City Homestead, Cindy Suelzle. Hi, Cindy.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you.
How long have you been homesteading? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, keep in mind that I live in the city, so homesteading for me is not what you might envision when you hear the word. But many years ago, when I was first married, we always wanted to get out onto a piece of land, and as we were trying to do that, I came across an article that said, if you cannot homestead where you are, then you're not going to be successful anywhere else either. And so I thought, that is great advice. And I'm going to start that. I'm not going to wait for this to happen. I'm going to just start living this life of self reliance, which really is what it is. And we lived in a little town. We lived in Kalmar at the time, little tiny town and just west of Edmonton. And we loved that. Like, we kind of always had been like that, but we just made more of a focus. And so I've just continued it. It's just been a lifetime. And we never did ever get out onto a piece of land. And I have long since decided it's a lifestyle. It doesn't matter where you are. And so my focus now is just just homestead wherever you are. Doesn't matter.
Well, that's great. Yes, I know you always have a wonderful garden and you have a large variety of things, and I'm sure you have a wealth of information when it comes to homesteading, especially within city limits. So, you are a Thrive Life consultant. How long have you been doing that?
I have been doing it just over 10 years. I actually was interested in Thrive a lot long. I've been buying Thrive a lot longer than that, but it launched in Canada on the 1st of December 2011. And so that is the day that I officially became a consultant. So we're just past our 10 years. So for me in the summer, we pretty much eat out of the garden, and like almost everything. I very rarely buy any vegetables or fruits. Um, and I don't really use anything else. It's just pretty much out of the garden. The only thing that we buy is meat and some dairy, because I'm not supplying those kind of things, obviously. But in the winter time, it is almost exclusively Thrive. And the reason for that is because obviously in the summer, nutritionally speaking, that is my best. That is my number one focus, and everything is going to be fresher than I would ever be able to get it any other way. So that goes without saying. But then, and I do put up things, I do freeze, I do dry, I do can. Um, but the nutritional value of those foods goes down pretty, like, obviously. One of my go-tos in the wintertime is canned tomatoes. So I only can what I have extra. I don't buy food to can. I only can what I have extra that we are not consuming fresh. And so I generally end up with quite a few tomatoes that I can. But the nutritional value of canned tomatoes, whether it's home canned or purchased, doesn't make any difference, is 40%. So
Wow.
40% of the original food value, of the food value that it was when it went into the jar, assuming I just picked it that day, is better. But so when you're talking about 40%, that's better than nothing, but marginally better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to rather than waste food, I am for sure going to put it up, and I'm happy to put it up. But to actually buy tomatoes that were picked green and then shipped and then probably sat for a week or more so that they could ripen and then can, then the nutritional value is quite a bit less than what it was when I do my own. Because when I pick my own, I'm picking them right.
Now that we've learned that this food is super healthy for us and a great choice, and that is something that even a homesteader can supplement their food supply with, let's see what your top ones are as someone who
Okay.
has a big garden and likes to have a variety of stuff on hand.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, I do have a big garden, and we do eat from our garden almost exclusively in the summer. But we live in Edmonton, and that means that our season is very short. So there's still a lot of the rest of the year. So obviously spinach. I do grow spinach, and for a short season, we'll be eating spinach out of the garden. But I very rarely now buy spinach from the grocery store, mostly because the romance has been taken out of it when I learned how depleted it was. We eat more spinach than we've ever eaten. When I used to, before these days, I was always buying that big, it was like $3.99, I think, bag of spinach.
Yeah.
And sometimes bigger. If I was going to have company, I would buy the bigger one. And then the game was try to get to the end of the bag before it went slimy, and that was kind of hard to do.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah, it is almost impossible. Invariably, I'm throwing some of it in the compost. So now I have spinach for everything except for spinach salad. So I still might buy, if I wanted to make a spinach salad in the winter, I might buy fresh spinach. But otherwise, it's this, and that's probably the vegetable that I use the most. If there was going to be anything that was going to compete with that, would be the onions. And I almost don't even use that as a vegetable. We use it for seasoning. It is the base of really almost everything savory that you do. And we used to, in the days that I was buying onions, fresh onions, I was buying 10-pound bags at a time. We used a lot of onions. And now I buy maybe a 3-pound bag once every couple of months if I want to use big pieces of onions in something. But otherwise, we use that for everything.
So I have a question. If you open the lid, does it make you cry?
Oh,
Good
question. Absolutely not. When you open the lid, you smell that wonderful onion smell, and know that oil that irritates your eyes. Nope, it's not there. So I like that I'm not going through the process of chopping. I can't even really remember the irritation of chopping and the whole eye thing. And this is just so perfect. And the other thing is if you have kids that don't like or don't think they like onions, then those disappear. Like, they literally just disappear in your dish. And if you don't want them to disappear, then we have onion slices that are nice big chunks. So if you're doing like a salsa or something like that you want the onions to show, then use those onions. But still, yeah, that oil, no, it's dry, so it's not bothering you.
I suppose that even if you didn't want to see really small, tiny little pieces of onion, that you could even powder it up dry before
you know what I do sometimes? If I would have thought of it, I would have brought this into the office. But so just a regular sieve, like just a colander sieve that I have hanging in my kitchen, I just put that in my sieve, and then I just smooth it in with my fingers, and it's a powder that comes out. Nice. And so that's onion powder. And so if I do have something, if I'm making maybe a white sauce that I don't want any little pieces of anything in there, then I will smooth it all out and I will make an onion powder. So how nice is that, eh?
Yeah.
So convenient. That has taken the place of, except for the onions that I grow all summer long that I'm using from the garden, in my non-garden months, that has taken the place of 98% of the onions that we use in the house. And I do have dehydrated, And you know what? When I first discovered the freeze dried, so at the time, Thrive Life had dehydrated onions and freeze dried onions. And I thought to myself, well, the freeze dried were a little bit more pricey. And so I will just use the dehydrated because I've used those all my married life and I'm used to them and I like them, and there's no point in reinventing the wheel. And so one day I bought the freeze dried by accident. And so I thought, that's okay, I'll just use these up, and when they're gone, I'll just continue using the dehydrated, which I always have. Like for chilies and stews and things that you're going to cook for a long time, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what surprised me was using that one can, really, it changed everything for me. I realized that these are not the same as dehydrated. These are, like if I wanted to make a fresh salsa, I don't want to put dehydrated onions in there. Okay, so there's lots of other vegetables, and I do use a lot of them. So I feel sorry for them that they're not here, but you did ask for my top 3. So what I should have done is done 3 vegetables and 3 fruits and 3 everything else. So this is tomato powder.
Okay.
And this is not a tomato sauce. This is a tomato powder. And that's all it is. You can see the...
Yeah, I can see the little powder.
That's kind of funny. 100% tomatoes. That's all it is. It's just tomatoes that are just powdered. And so I use these a lot. When I first started getting these, when I was kind of replacing some of my food storage with Thrive Life foods, I bought this. I didn't know what to do with it. And my daughter started probably a couple of years after I did. And I remember talking to her one day and saying, now that you've been using Thrive Foods for about a year, do you have any favorites? And she said, oh, yes. Well, what is it? Tomato powder. And I had mine open, but I wasn't using it all the time because I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And so I said, well, what do you use it for? And she says, Mom, I use it for everything. Like what? Like, what do you use it for? Because I can't figure out what to use it for. And she said, Mom, I use it for my tomato sauce. Like for spaghetti sauce, I use it in my chili. I use it on like pizza sauce. I use it for everything that I want a tomato flavor in. And I realized that I still had cans of pureed tomatoes and cans of tomato sauce that I had purchased a long time ago that were still in my food storage. And so that's why I wasn't using it, is because I was always defaulting to what I was used to. And so after I listened to her, I thought, well, I'm not gonna buy that stuff anymore. I don't need it anymore. That's what this is. So really, tomato paste, if you want tomato paste, then you make it out of this and a little bit of water. If you want tomato sauce, then you make it out of this and a little bit more water. And obviously you're going to want seasonings and other things in your sauce. If you want tomato juice, you use this and more water. Like, that is so practical. And it took the place of a lot of other things that I had in my food storage. So I was glad that we had that conversation. I'm glad she convinced me and she opened my eyes. So that's definitely one of my favorites. We are big tomato fans here. And fruits, really, there's probably 6 or 7 of our top fruits. But you mentioned, when we were talking recently, you mentioned raspberries. And
yes, I love raspberries. Aren't they beautiful?
They are fantastic, and I do grow raspberries. I kind of didn't know for sure that I would use them as often as I do because I grow raspberries. We eat raspberries in the summer. I also freeze raspberries. I don't dehydrate them anymore, but I do freeze them, and so we use a lot of frozen raspberries. But frozen raspberries are not all that practical for just eating. And they're not that practical for putting in muffins, and they're not that practical for like so many things. Like you have to use them frozen or they're soggy, which is good. They have their place. But this makes raspberries part of my life. Okay, so I was just trying to think of the things that I used, well, not that I used the most necessarily, or that I even loved the most necessarily, but were really convenient. And milk. I know there's a lot of people that drink milk a lot more than we do. We don't drink a lot of milk in our house, but we do use milk, and it's nice to have. And I still do buy milk from the grocery store once in a while, but this instant milk is so easy to use and it tastes so good that it's a fallback. I use this a lot more than I ever thought that I would use. And for one thing, anytime I'm in a recipe and it calls for milk, then I'm going to use that for sure. And then sometimes even just straight for drinking, or like if I make cookies and I'm going to give the kids cookies and milk. So that I wouldn't want to be without. I buy that by the cases, by the way. When I buy milk, I buy it by the case. And the other one is the meats. And probably, well, there's actually lots of meats and we use all of them. But this is, and the only reason, so this is the bigger slices. So like really big slices, nice big slices of the chicken. And then we have chopped chicken too, and I love the chopped chicken. But the reason I grabbed this one instead of the chopped is because so I was going to stop in at Opa's and get some Greek food. So I kind of had it in my head that I wanted something Greek-ish. And anyway, I just didn't. It wasn't convenient. And as I was driving, I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just go home and I'll make something Greek. And with that, whatever the flavors were that I was thinking I was in the mood for. And so I did. So I came home and I opened up that, and that chicken, those nice big chicken slices, and I refreshed that, and I happened to have some pesto in the fridge, which isn't necessarily Greek, but I had some pasta that was in the fridge, and I put together a wonderful dish. I have no idea what it might be called. But I used peppers, and I used spinach, and I used onions, and I used my pesto, and I used the chicken, and I used the pasta that I had in the fridge, and some Parmesan cheese, and I had I had a spinach dip that I had made with cream cheese that I had in the fridge that I just used the rest of, and it was fantastic. It was just so easy. It was the flavor that I was craving when I thought about going to Opa's, and how easy was that? And if I hadn't had that kind of chicken, there's no way I would have just stopped in and picked up something, and that would have been the end of that. With this, it's already cooked and it's ready. All I have to do is refresh it, and I can do anything that I am in the mood to do with not much notice.
That's nice. You know, it's making me think about your creativity with that recipe. And when we get distracted by long procedures in preparing the food, you might kind of block that creative flow a little bit. It might be harder to come up with a really good recipe and get it just right. It's just so much easier when everything's at your fingertips.
Well, that's it exactly. When it's all there, oh, this would be nice with peppers. Hey, I have some. This would be nice with spinach. Hey, I have some. I really need some onions in here. I have some. There was nothing, like, that's nice. Mm-hmm. That's nice. If I had to cook the chicken, you can't think of what to have and then have it within a half hour if it's got meat in it. If you have to know hours ahead of time that you want to do that. So I like the meat, even though I don't use a ton of meat. It is really, really nice to have when I do want the meat.
Okay, so let's just recap here. Your top ingredients that save you time, even though you have a plethora of food from your garden, the things that you still find are very helpful to save you time in the kitchen was...
for the vegetables, it would be the onions and the spinach.
Yeah.
And tomato powder.
Tomato powder.
And for the fruits, it would be raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, and peaches, and apricots. Oh, and bananas, because the kids were...
The list keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Right. So I wouldn't want to be without any of those. And then the meats. Yeah, I love the meats. The chicken for sure, the ground beef for sure, the shredded beef for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Cindy. Can you tell us a little bit just briefly, why you chose to be a consultant versus just being a customer and getting this food as a customer?
I knew I liked it. I knew that was the way that we were going to eat. I knew that I was going to talk about it. When I see something that I love, that I just think is the best thing, then I'm going to talk about it. And I knew if I was going to talk about it, then I wanted to help people get the same thing that I got. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. If I liked something this much, I knew I wanted to tell everybody I knew about it. So that's really why. That was why. The nice things about being a consultant, you know what? It's an income. I work from home. I earn money, and I like that. And I mean, that's certainly a big piece of it. There's lots of other perks that I personally, I didn't join for any of those perks, but I do enjoy them since I'm here anyway. So the perks, I do get some pretty good deals. I do get a kickback financially on my own orders, which is kind of nice because I'm ordering anyway. And the commission that I receive on anything that I sell, of course. And sometimes there is products that are that they just do special products for consultants. So I like getting in on those kinds of things. And I like the community that I'm in. I like people like you that I wouldn't really know if it wasn't for this. And just, there's so many wonderful people that it's a full meal deal for me. It's everything.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Cindy, for sharing all of that information with us. It was very valuable to hear your thoughts and opinions on these things and what items everybody could use in their home to help save some time. So if you are interested in this food, please contact the consultant who invited you. If by chance you just stumbled across this video, feel free to reach out to me and I can do my best to help you out. To catch more of our Thriving Talk series, be sure to join our Facebook event. The link is in the description, or you could subscribe to Thriving Talk with Karen on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to share this series with those you think will benefit from this. Well, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye.
Bye.